Hi, this is counselor and professor Robert Alexander, and I'm here to lecture on chapter 9, sexual expression. Right now, as we delve deeper into sexual expression, I want you to pay attention and kind of look back at your life. Maybe you have been affected by some of the things that we're going to talk about. As always, take notes. Okay. When you are writing manually, this is how you retain the information. The better notes you keep, you're able to review and look at some of the things that we may have covered in the chapter. So, without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get into sexual expression. Now, sexual expression, it has to deal with these topics: human sexual response, female sexual response, the male sexual response, sexual attractiveness, sexual scripts, autoeroticism, sexual behavior with others. And it's a really good idea to look at some of the things that you may have been affected by. So, in terms of our human sexual response, a person's sexuality is significantly influenced by the social groups to which they belong to. So, this has to do with the family that you come from, the neighborhood that you grew up in, with your ethnicity, the people that you're around the most. For many people, gender is probably the most influential in shaping their sexual desires, behaviors, and partnerships. Orgasm refers to the climax of sexual sensation, rhythmic contractions in the genital area, intensely pleasurable sensations. So the sexual response sexual response cycle has to do with the sequence of changes and patterns in the body during sexual arousal. So Masters and Johnson's four-phase model of sexual response: excitement, plateau, orgasm, resolution. Kaplan's triphastic model of sexual response have to do with the desire, excitement, and orgasm. And Luland's sexual response model had to do with the six-stage cycle, incorporating both the biological and affective components. So we have these competing models for sexual response, right? Masters and Johnson, Kaplan's, Luland's, and we're going to do a deep dive into each of these. Some of them are very similar, but some vary, right? Couple of terms I need for you to write down is vasocongestion. Vasocongestion is the swelling of the genital tissues and increased muscle tension. Myotonia, with the approach of an orgasm. So in men, this happens when the penis becomes erect. In women, the clitoris swells. This is referred to as vasocongestion. Write this down. This is going to be in your written assignments as well as on the test. Vasocongestion. Dual control model provides a theoretical perspective of sexual response based on the brain function and the interaction between sexual excitation and sexual inhibition. This is the dual control model. Now, the desire and arousal, the two sides of the same coin. Desire is the psychological component of sexual arousal. Thoughts and feelings, your sensory organs, neural responses, and hormonal reactions. Desire may follow or be preceded by arousal. Through the neural system, the brain receives stimulation from the five senses and imagination, right? These signals are getting sent to the brain, and these are based on the five senses. The limbic system, structures associated with the emotions and feelings of sexual arousal. Erogenous zones, skin that is highly sensitive to touch. Significant hormones include testosterone, oxytocin. So then the female sexual response, signs of sexual excitement: sweating, seeping of moisture through the vaginal walls, tenting, expansion of the vagina. The vagina expands, it extracts. Sex flush, a darkening of the skin or a rash, right? In certain areas, men and women can have a sex flush, a darkening of the skin or a rash. This isn't unique to any specific gender. Men and women can have these. Orgasmic platform is a thickening of the vaginal walls in the plateau stage of the sexual response cycle. Okay, that's a thickening of the vaginal walls in the plateau stage of the sexual response cycle. A orgasm is a peak sensation of intense pleasure that creates an altered state of consciousness. Involuntary, rhythmic, uterine, and anal contractions, myotonia, and a state of well-being and contentment that is to follow after that climactic experience, right? So we are looking at figure 1A, and the figure shows the Masters and Johnson stages of female sexual response. The figure shows an excitement of the vagina from the internal point of view. The uterus above the bladder elevates, and the vaginal lubrication appears. The clitoris engorges with blood, and the labia minora, labia majora swell. Right. So the figure on the top shows a vagina which is unaroused from the external point of view. Right. The outward point of view. The clitoral hood above the clitoris appears normal. The urethra and the labia majora and labia minora are normal. The figure below shows a vagina in the plateau stage from the internal point of view, looking on the inside. The uterus elevates further, right? The upper part of the vagina expands and the vaginal wall forms an orgasmic platform. The color of the labia deepens and the clitoris withdraws under the clitoral hood. Take time, take notes. Figure 1B shows the excitement stage from the external point of view where the clitoral shaft and the glands swell. The glands retract beneath the hood. The labia minora deepen in color and enlarge. The labia majora separate from the vaginal opening. Bartholin's glands may secrete a small amount of fluid. The figure below on the left shows a vagina undergoing orgasm from the internal point of view. The contractions in the uterus continue and reach its peak. The rhythmic contractions in the vagina occur and the rectal sphincter contracts. The clitoris remains retracted under the hood. The figure on the below shows a vagina in the orgasm stage from the external point of view. The clitoris remains retracted under the hood. The orgasmic platform contracts and the anal sphincter contracts. The figure at the bottom shows the resolution stage from the internal, from the inside point of view, where the uterus lowers and the orgasmic platform disappears. The vagina returns to normal and the clitoris returns to an unaroused position. Male sexual response. Men and women follow roughly the same pattern of excitement and orgasm, but there are two exceptions. Men become fully aroused in a shorter amount of time, right? Men become fully aroused in a shorter amount of time. Once men experience ejaculation, they usually cannot do so again for some time. Sexual arousal in men includes myotonia, increased muscle tension, and vasocongestion, engorgement of the tissues with blood. Vasocongestion is most apparent in the erection, right? Erection. Blood vessels expand, increasing the volume of blood, especially within the corpora cavernosa, and veins that normally carry blood out are compressed. Cowper's gland secretions appear at the tip of the penis. The length of time an erection lasts varies greatly. Failure to attain an erection is experienced by most men at one time or another. It can be linked to certain conditions and medications. Ejaculation and orgasm. Ejaculation occurs in two stages. There are emission, that's rhythmic contractions sending sperm into the vas deferentia and urethra, accompanied by the sensation of ejaculatory inevitability. Expulsion, rapid rhythmic contractions that cause semen to spurt from the urethral opening. Some men experience retrograde ejaculation. This is a backward expulsion of semen into the bladder. And this is rare. Ejaculation and orgasm. Orgasm, intense, pleasurable physical sensations generate release of tension that typically accompany ejaculation. Is it possible to ejaculate without an orgasm and to orgasm without ejaculation? Refractory period. This is a period during which men are not capable of having an ejaculation again. For younger men, that refractory period is shorter, And for older men, that refractory period can be a little bit lengthier in time, right? That refractory period, it increases as you get older. Kegel exercises. Strengthening the muscles that surround the penis can produce more intense orgasms and ejaculation, right? This is kind of clenching. A Kegel exercise is clenching those anal sphincter muscles. This can help strengthen the muscles that surround the penis and the vagina. It can produce more intense orgasms and ejaculations. Kegel exercise can be done by all genders. The figure 3, this is Masters and Johnson stages in male sexual response. In the excitement stage of the penis, vasocongestion of penis results in erection from an unstimulated stage and a partial erection stage. The testes elevate towards the perineum, and the skin of the scrotum tenses, thickens, and elevates. In the late excitement of plateau stage, the color of the pineal glands deepen and the prostate enlarges. The Cowper's gland activates and secretes a substance. The testes increase in size and are fully elevated, and the scrotum thickens and intenses. So stop, take notes, and observe. Right? So this Masters and Johnson stages in the male sexual response. Number 3 is the orgasm, and number 4 is the resolution. And you can tell from the graphic during the orgasm, sperm expels by rhythmic contractions of the urethra, the vas deferens contract, internal sphincter and bladder contracts, seminal vessels contract, prostate gland contracts. They are all working simultaneously as a team, contracting as the sperm is expelled. During the resolution stage, it's unstimulated. The erection subsides, loss of testicular congestion, and the testes begin to extend back into the scrotum. Now we're talking about sexual attractiveness across cultural analysis. Men and women universally consider youthfulness and health important in terms of sexual attractiveness. That's why the older you get, or when we're talking about folks that have reached the senior citizen status, many folks don't view folks that are in a senior citizen status as being sexually active. But studies and research have shown that folks that are older in age still experience a lot of sexual attractiveness and a lot of great sex. So sociobiologists theorize the compatibility for healthy and reproduction and support of offspring is key. Culture to culture, considerable variation exists in what parts of the body are considered erotic and what constitutes attractiveness. Symmetry has been found to be important, right? Having uniqueness, also what has to do with having balance in different body parts. Symmetry. Scent is another significant factor, and symmetry can refer to the attractiveness of somebody that is also attracted to you, right? That helps. You are attracted to people that are attracted to you sometimes, right? So when we talk about evolutionary mating perspectives, sexual strategies theory addresses gender differences in short-term and long-term heterosexual relationships from evolutionary mating perspective. Males and females face different adaptive problems in casual mating and long-term reproductive mating, leading to different strategies or behaviors. Women are predicted to avoid short-term relationships, given the possible costs. The opposite is evident for men, right? So men are not as worried about short term, and this has been found out through years of research, surveys, statistics. Women are more likely than men to value post-coital activities that reflect or promote pair bonding. So women are more interested than men oftentimes than doing things outside of the bedroom, outside of sex, right? But it varies from gender to gender. So evolutionary mating perspectives, a mating strategy, a mate poaching, A mating strategy that involves luring a person who is already in a romantic relationship, either for short-term liaison or for the long term. So, this is desirable mates attract many suitors and usually end up in a relationship. Therefore, finding a desirable mate often means seeking those already in relationship, right? So recently, some scientists have questioned evolutionary grounds for gender differences. Such differences may be more the effect of cultural norms than biology. Take time, take notes, and reflect. Table 2, this frequency of romantic attraction and mate poaching experiences of undergraduate. So the answers to the questions: have you ever been successfully poached? And have you ever had a past partner successfully poached from you? Were defined as a scoring greater than 101. Not at all, successful to 7, being very successful, right? So a man attempted to attract someone as a long-term mate, 87%, 86% women. Attempted to attract someone as a short-term mate, 91% men, 74% women. Attempted to poach someone as a short-term mate, 64%, 49% women. Take time, take notes, reflect. Table 3, the results of research studies related to sexual strategies theory. Men are more likely than women to engage in extradidactic sex outside a committed relationship. Men are more likely than women to be sexually non-exclusive multiple times with different sexual partners. Men are more likely than women to seek short-term partners who are already married. Men are more likely than women to have fantasies involving short-term sex and multiple other sex partners. Take time, take notes, reflect. Sexual desire is affected by physical, emotional, and sexual relationship issues. Men in both same sex and mixed sex relationships express moderately higher levels of sexual desire than women. Persons in the same sex relationships report greater sexual desire for solitary sexual behaviors than those in mixed sex relationships. Two factors are erotophilia and erotophobia. Erotophilia, a positive emotional response to sexuality. Erotophobia, a negative emotional response to sexuality. These traits are not fixed. Positive experience can alter agoraphobia responses. All right. So when we talk about sexual scripts, what a sexual script is in our culture are highly gendered, strongly influence our sexuality. Sexual scripts is the same as our schema. How we how we make sense of the world around us, how we make sense of our sexuality based on our culture, based on oftentimes our community, ethnicity, neighborhood we grow up in, church we went to, etc. So sexual scripts have several distinct components. The cultural component provides the general pattern that sexual behaviors are expected to take. So interpersonal component deals with the internal and the physio- physiological states that lead to accompany or identify sexual arousal. Interpersonal component involves shared conventions and signals that enable sexual behaviors between two people, right? When we talk about autoeroticism, this consists of sexual activities that involve only the self, interpersonal activity rather than an interpersonal one, right? So includes sexual fantasies, erotic dreams, viewing sexually explicit material by oneself, using vibrators and other sex toys by oneself, and masturbation. The stimulation of one's genitals for pleasure. Those who engage in very little autoerotic activity are less likely to have a partner than those who engage in different kinds of autoerotic activity. Sexual fantasies and dreams. Men and women think about sex often and experience numerous different fantasies. More men than women report thinking about sex at least once a day. Erotic fantasy is probably the most universal of all sexual activities. Fantasies are part of the body's regular healthy functioning. Higher the sexual drive, the higher the frequency of sexual fantasies and level of satisfaction in one's sex life. Higher the sexual drive, the higher the frequency of sexual fantasies and level of satisfaction in one's sex life. So these are all connected. If you have a high sex drive, you're going to have a higher frequency of sexual fantasies. And the level of satisfaction may not be to your standard or to your desires and the frequency of these fantasies, right? And that makes sense. So when we talk about the function of sexual fantasies have a number of important functions. They help to direct and define our erotic goals. They allow us to plan for or anticipate situations that may arise. They provide escape from a dull or oppressive environment. Sometimes that can be work or going to school. These are dull and oppressive, sometimes oppressive environments, right? Or you're in a situation where you're dating someone that is not very experimental or is not very satisfying to you. So even when our sex lives are satisfactory, they bring novelty and excitement into the relationship, right? Like dreams, they may offer clues as to our current interests, pleasures, anxieties, fears, or problems, right? Fantasies during sexual expression. So many people fantasize during sex. This is not uncommon. Have you ever been having sex and you're fantasizing about maybe a scene you've seen on pornography or a past experience? Fantasies are usually a continuation of daydreams or masturbatory fantasies. So many people, more men than women, report having extra didactic fantasies, those about someone other than a current partner. Sex therapists consider fantasies of other lovers to be quite normal and certainly typical, right? Women's fantasies about being victimized do not mean they want this to occur. Okay, so don't be confused with that. If a woman has ever been victimized or if a male has ever been victimized, it doesn't mean that they want this to occur, right? But I want to highlight that sex therapists consider fantasies of other lovers to be quite normal and certainly typical. So you might be tripping, like, why am I thinking about this past lover during sex with my current lover? This is very common. Okay, this is not a one-off thing. Many people experience this, right? So when we talk about erotic dreams, sexual images in dreams are frequently very intense. Overtly sexual dreams are not necessarily exciting, and dreams that are apparently non-sexual may cause arousal. Dreams almost always accompany nocturnal orgasm, right? So women seem to feel less guilty or fearful about nocturnal orgasm than men do, and that's odd. I want to say that again. Women seem to feel less guilty or fearful about nocturnal orgasms than men do. Oftentimes, men will try to hide or will not self-disclose that they had a nocturnal orgasm, often referred to as a wet dream. For some men, it is a point of embarrassment, right? So when we talk about masturbation, people masturbate for many reasons: relaxation, relief of sexual tension, physical pleasure, or aid to falling asleep. Partners is not available or does not want sex. Means of avoiding STIs and unintended pregnancy, right? So it's not taboo to masturbate. Remember, you know, way back when masturbation was seen as a very negative thing, and some religions said masturbation is called blindness or eternal damnation. My, how things have changed. Masturbation is an important means of learning about our bodies. Most young people receive very little positive information about masturbation and must come to terms with a dual stigma and pleasure cultural message. So, depending on the cultural message, depending on your sexual script, most young people receive very little positive information about masturbation and must come to terms with a dual stigma and pleasure from the pleasure cultural message, right? You gotta change this. So the prevalence of masturbation, studies show that masturbation is common behavior that can be considered a typical and pleasurable part of an individual and a couple's sexuality, practice alone or in a partner relationship among all ages, sexual orientations, and ethnicity. So, masturbatory behavior is influenced by education, ethnicity, religion, and age. Education is a particularly strong factor. The more educated, the more frequently one masturbates. The more educated, the one more frequently masturbates, right? So when we talk about masturbation in adulthood, masturbation is common among youth. It peaks in young adulthood and tends to decrease in later years. Women who masturbate appear to hold more positive sexual attitudes and are more likely to be orgasmic. Number two, women masturbate in exactly the same manner, right? Nearly all methods among men involve some type of direct stimulation of the penis with the hand. Most people continue to masturbate after they marry or are in a steady relationship. Table 4, percentage of United States adults aged 18 to 70 who participated in selected partner sexual behavior in the past year by gender and age. Right? And they have these categories broken down to vaginal intercourse, gay partner oral sex, receive oral sex, intercitive anal sex, received anal sex, worn sexy underwear or lingerie for a partner, have sex with someone in a public place. Take time, take notes, and reflect. And this right here is the percentage of U.S. adults age 18 to 70 who participated in selected partner sexual behavior in the past year by gender and age. Take time, take notes, reflect. And this right here is the percentage of Americans aged 14 to 70 who reported masturbating alone in the past year. Take time, take notes, reflect. This is broken down by ages. Men purple and the women are orange. Sexual behavior with others. Sex is not limited to sexual intercourse. Partners engage in a variety of sexual activities, including erotic touching, kissing, oral, and anal sex. Figure 9 is the frequency of engaging in sex more than 2 times per week by a relationship, age 18 to 79. Blue is female same sex, orange is female mixed sex, purple is male same sex, and green is male mixed sex. Take time, take notes, reflect. Figure 10 is the duration of average sexual encounter by relationship, age 18 to 79. Blue is female same sex, orange is female mixed sex, purple is male same sex, and green is male mixed sex. Take time, take notes, reflect. Now, when we talk about couple sexual styles, the most common, the complementary style, complementary style allows each partner to have a positive sexual voice while sharing an intimate relationship. But sex can become routine. You got to try to break out of that routine. You have to try to add some spice into it if it starts to become routine. Most you gotta try different things, but most predictable and stable is the traditional style. Conflict minimizing, placing high value on keeping the peace, commitment, and stability. Soulmate style, right, involves the highest level of intimacy and closeness, considered the perfect style. Emotionally expressive style, the most erotic, dominated by strong emotion and drama, right? Touching. Touch is one of my love languages. Touching is both a sign of caring and signal for arousal. Massages, kisses on the neck, rubbing of your head, rubbing of the ears, does not need to be directed solely towards the genitals or erogenous zones. The entire body is responsive. Maybe giving your loved one a foot massage, a back rub. These are all things that me, as having touch as a love language, it derives great pleasure that is not necessarily connected to the erogenous zones. So pleasuring, non-genital touching and caressing. Tribadism is pressing together of bodies with genital thrusting, right? When we were young or in elementary school, they would call this dry humping, but the technical term is tribadism. Interfemoral intercourse, rubbing the penis between the thighs of a partner, right? Stimulating a partner's clitoris or penis with a hand or finger can increase excitement and lead to an orgasm. Direct stimulation of the clitoral gland can be painful. Okay. And this varies from person to person, woman to woman. So you want to be in tune with your partner, but also ask what your partner likes. Okay. They may like swirls as opposed to up and down. You have to communicate this with your partner, right? So when we talk about touching, that could also lead to kissing, and they can happen interchangeably. Kissing is usually our earliest interpersonal sexual experience, right? A lot of people, a lot of folks, as you go through adolescence, kissing is one of the first things you do. So primal intensity may be traced back to our suckling as infants, when we suck on our mother's breast in order to nourish our bodies as babies. Probably the most acceptable of all sexual activities, regarded by most people as a romantic expression. That's why kissing can happen in public, where it is considered taboo or obscene for other sexual acts to happen in a public place. Lips and mouth are highly sensitive, and sense of taste and smell are also engaged. In many ways, the height of intimacy, romantic kissing is not the norm in most world cultures. Some even consider it repulsive. So this has to do with your sexual script, your culture, your community. Oral genital sex, cunnilingus, and fellatio, increasingly important aspects of the sexual lives of high school and college students of every sexual orientation, not considered as intimate as intercourse, right? And that depends on your sexual script as well, because some folks view, depending on where you come from, cunnilingus and fellatio as very important or intimate parts of intercourse, and that's something that you share with somebody that you're in love with. Cunnilingus, the erotic stimulation of a woman's vulva and or clitoris by her partner's mouth and tongue. Fellatio, oral stimulation of a man's penis by his partner's sucking and licking. Autofellatio, a man's oral stimulation of his own penis, right? Many men cannot achieve this based on flexibility, or their sexual script just doesn't allow them to come out of that taboo thinking, right? Sexual intercourse. Sexual intercourse is another scientific name for vaginal intercourse, penile to vaginal intercourse, penile to anal sex, or coitus. Prevalence of sexual intercourse is very high. Positions. Most common is the face-to-face. Some people refer to this as missionary, with inserted partner on top and receptive partner on the bottom. Also common is face-to-face with a receptive partner on top. Allows the woman more control and tends to be less stimulating for the man, thus making it easier for him to control ejaculation. Others include sexual variations of the rear end position, face-to-face, side position, and wheelchair sex. Tantric sex, based on Eastern religious beliefs, involves the couple sharing their energies by initially thrusting minimally and harmonizing their breathing. Right? Tantric sex has to be done in tandem, and both kind of have to have a general knowledge of tantric sex, because it has to do with energies being shared. It has to do with the breath, the harmonizing of their breathing together, right? Anal penetration, anal eroticism, sexual activities involving the anus. Delicate membranes in the anus make it erotically arousing for many people. Analingus is licking of the anal region. Some people refer to this as rimming. analingus and rimming are synonymous with one another. Anal manual contact may involve insertion of the fingers or fists. Anal penetration, the male's insertion of his erect penis into his partner's rectum. Participated in by both heterosexual people and gay men. Well, all people do this. Because the rectum is particularly susceptible to STI, anal sex is riskier than most other forms of sexual interaction. That's why even if you're engaging in vaginal or anal sex, it's a good idea to use a condom. The health benefits of sexual activity. When sex is fun, it brings unique joy and satisfaction. Persons who frequently engage in sexual activity are also reported to experience numerous health benefits. Beverly Whipple was quoted saying, "It is not entirely clear whether sex makes people healthier or whether healthy people tend to have more sex." I like this quote. Good sex and good health reinforce each other, right? This has been a fun chapter, right? Where we talked about many things that have to do with human sex response, female sex response, male sex response, sexual attractiveness. We've covered so much. We also talked about sexual scripts, autoeroticism, sexual behavior with others. So as always, it's a good opportunity to take some time looking over your notes, making sure that you have written down things that you want to go back to or review for that test. I am Professor Robert Alexander. This has been a fun chapter. And remember, it's always good to review those notes early and often. I'll see you guys next time.